Good evening. My name is Robert Schultes, and I am a doctoral student at Liberty University Online. And in my spare time, I'm the Chief Information Officer for 92,000 Marines in the U.S. Marine Forces Pacific. I'm thankful today to be able to talk a little bit about my research question, some of the research that's been done to date, and some of the benefits that this research will do for U.S. national policy and the security of our nation. You only have to read the news and open up your browser or turn on a news channel and realize that the strategic competition between the United States and the Chinese Communist Party has heightened over the last few years. Some of the recent events you'll see is decisions that the Cook Islands in the Pacific made to partner with the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. You'll see things about the Solomons, how the Solomons decided to support China instead of supporting Taiwan, who they had traditionally supported up until about 2020. You'll see that as a repeatable process or a repeatable thing that's occurred within the Pacific. It's my thesis that that is not something that happened just by happenstance or near-term policy, but is a repeatable process that the CCP has implemented through both legal and illegal policies, economic policies that puts those nations within the Pacific in a disadvantage to where they are forced to make decisions that they normally would not make, that normal decisions that they would make that will hurt their country when they would have decided alternatively had they not been under that coercive economic policy. And so that leads up to my research question. So my question basically is, what is the CCP's economic playbook? And how do they use it and ultimately to influence other nations? And some of that is going to be both from a legal economic policy, things like trade, things like sanctions, things like loans, state-owned enterprises, and some of the work that they do within those nation states. And then the malign activity that I referenced earlier, things like the illegal fishing, things like fentanyl that they insert into the country, things like campaign influence, and other illegal malign activities, unfair labor practices, things like that, the underpinnings that give them the foundation to then make some of the legal economic policies that ultimately put that nation into a state of elite capture, in which that nation can then no longer make decisions that would benefit its people, instead have to make decisions that better align with the Chinese Communist Party. Once I do that research and define that repeatable process that's occurred over and over and over again, that research will then allow our nation then to define where within that playbook any nation state may be, and allow us to better judge whether that is something we need to take action against, both in an economic policy or other policies. And then also define a better way to enable us to do a repeatable process to then begin to reverse some of the impacts of that economic coercion, and then better positions our allies and partners to make better decisions that benefit them and a free and open Pacific. Some of the existing literature that exists, because there's plenty of literature on the Chinese Communist Party, right? Some of that is the literature talks about the malign economic activity, but it usually stops short of defining state capture or even acknowledging that that's the CCP's end state. Some discusses activities that the U.S. government can do to counter CCP economic policy. Most of that research fails to address the malign, illegal, illicit, economic, coercive behavior of the Fujian or United Front workers at the bottom level underneath the state-owned enterprises. And if you don't address that, there is no economic policy that's going to place those nations in a better state. There's plenty of of literature on overall economic coercion. Some of my favorites: this book by Kerry Gershanak, a retired Marine colonel, labeled Political Warfare. It defines how some of the 30-year theories that the CCP have put into place. Another one by Colonel Grant Newsham, When China Attacks. It's a warning to the United States about the implications of us sitting idly by. And so the foundation work is there, but there is no overarching holistic effort that has defined the CCP's playbook over the last 30 years, defined methods to reverse some of that elite capture that's already occurred, and then lastly, how the whole of government will work together to ultimately utilize flexible response options from Treasury to labor to commerce, through legal enforcement, through DEA, to begin to roll back some of the capture, and then ultimately open a free and open Pacific and allow nations that are our allies and partners to make decisions for themselves instead of being stuck making decisions they ultimately would not make because they're under the coercive behaviors that the last 30 years have put them in. And so I look forward to this research and reporting back to you later.